Hey, it's DeagleBeagle, and today we're gonna go over how to use Hippowdon. I'm going over this because we're seeing how great and underrated Tyranitar is. I should have put it down as underrated because it counters so many things. But then I was thinking, wait a minute, we have Terra types, right? And I was thinking about first I was thinking about Hippowdon after I was looking for, I believe, other Sandstream users, like other weather users, and then I saw Hippowdon, and I was like, actually, Hippowdon seems a lot better in Series 2 than Series 1. I haven't really tested it yet, but I can just tell because remember how people keep saying the Series 2 metagame is very ground weak? I was also looking for other ground attackers. I think that's why I kept seeing Hippowdon, but I kept overlooking it and overlooking it, and finally I'm like, I gotta take another look at this thing and see if it's really good or not and make a video on it. So here it is. Now, you might want to use a hodgepodge of a mix and match of some of these things. Like you may, for example, see another Hippowdon with Protect, and instead of Slack Off on this specific one with Citrus, you might want Protect or what. I mean, you can decide what you want. These are just different ideas I'm throwing out there. So it doesn't have to be exactly like mine. And you can use max attack or more attack or different amounts of bulk or whatever speed with it. But generally, since it's so slow, I might even recommend just making it Braveman speed or 48 speed, whatever, to underspeed 49 speed Pokemon like King Ambit and Iron Hand. So in Trick Room, you can outspeed it and either Earthquake or Stomping Tantrum or whatever you need to do against them. But you could use a Hippowdon that is like more geared to outside of Trick Room. I'll go over that later, but it's not that fast of a Pokemon, so I figure you probably should just make it slow because if you're trying to make it outspeed stuff, you would probably have to add speed EVs. Like if you look at this Hippowdon, you would probably have to make it like 70 something, at least 72 speed to outspeed King Ambits and Iron Hands at min speed. But if they're not using min speed on theirs, then they could be using way more speed EVs, so you don't really know. So it's like those EVs could be a waste, even though it's not that much. So maybe you should do it if you're trying to use it outside of Trick Room, give it like 70 something speed. But if you think you want to counter Trick Room a little bit, you could use this. And actually, it does counter Trick Room pretty well in general because let's look at the top tier Pokemon, or not even just the top tier Pokemon, but there is Iron Hands. Where's Iron Hands? Iron Hands, it counters Arcanine. There's a lot of ground weak Pokemon. Armarouge, it outspeeds and super affects that in Trick Room. And it actually has pretty good stats. It's good versus Garganacl and just Mons in general because if you see its HP compared to Tyranitar, Tyranitar is overall bulkier because of the sandstorm. It has more HP than Tyranitar and it has more defense. So it's more defensive than Tyranitar, but not more especially defensive. But actually, it's more especially Actually, that's wrong. Well, if you max the special defense, then it has more defense than the min one on Tar. Oh yeah, I could even put in an assault vest set. I'll have to do an assault vest set for Hippowdon, even though I don't know if it really should run in an assault vest set, but it would cover its lower special defense. So I'll have to make that set before I forget. But my idea was you tear a rock, and now you have 50% more special defense than sand. Yes, you are still weak to a lot of the same attacks that would super affect ground like water and grass, but it still would be good in a pinch if you need more special defense. Or just tear it from turn one, even if you're not trying to resist an attack, just to get the special defense, and it boosts up the Stone Edge. And I don't normally like to recommend 80 power moves. You could use Rock Slide if you want, but the way I see it is it's almost always going to go last with Rock Slide, unless maybe you're using a Trick Room, and even then you would probably want an Earthquake. So it's like you might as well just go for a Stone Edge, and it's not affected by Wide Guard either. So it's good to have a move that goes through Wide Guard and hits Pokemon harder. Like a Rock Slide, if you're trying to use Rock Slide, you're probably mostly trying to hit one Pokemon with it, because chances are they don't have two Pokemon weak to Rock Slide. That's why even on Mudsdale, I don't like 80% accuracy, but ignoring Wide Guard and doing a lot more damage to the mon you want to damage when it hits, instead of doing much weaker damage and then maybe hitting their ally and not doing that much damage to it either. It's just like, and like Rock Slide can miss too. So Stone Edge is good, I think, in the like compared to the alternatives, high crit rate and accuracy. Yes, it's bad, but it's like worth risking, I think, considering the circumstances. Unlike Hydro Pump you can use something else like Water Pulse or Whirlpool or whatever on Iron Bundle. Anyways, um, so this was an idea I had slack off, because if you give it this much special defense with HP, especially if you can tear a rock, it'll be pretty hard to kill. Unlike Tar, it has slack off, it has yawn, so you could just keep spamming yawns. Even if Earthquake won't do much, you could just keep spamming earthquakes, yawns, etc. You could even give it like sassy nature or something, but I just figure its highest stat is attack, and you might want some attack, so I'm just gonna give it attack raising nature, but you could use more or less if you want, and you probably don't need more defense. You probably would only want special defense. Well, first you would want to max HP probably on pretty much all the Hippowdons, and then you would probably want to give it at least some special defense and some speed if you're using the adamant one. If you're not using adamant, use brave and probably min the speed or almost min it. For sure below the 49 speed, because that's a common speed tier. Let's look at the speed tiers really quick. Guess who makes all these things? Like the tier maker, and the speed tier. I did. It's the best speed tier guide we have, even though maybe it doesn't look super professional, but to me this looks professional enough. So I pretty much copy and pasted an old um, trainer tower thing and just update it with the new mods. I gotta update this a little bit more though, because I need to update it for the updated metagame for Series 2. There's some unexpected Pokemon that I need to add here. So if you go down to the 49 speed area, you see common Pokemon are Iron Hands and King Ambit. Those are probably the most common that I'm referring to. Hippowdon is slower than that, so it's faster in Trick Room. Now, if you go to Hippowdon 67 speed uninvested, so between 46 and 67 speed, let's see what there is. No one really uses a min speed or uninvest. No one really uses these. So then going up, no one really uses min speed on any of these things except Oranguru. So would outspeed min speed Oranguru, but that's probably using Trick Room anyways. And then no one's going to use a min speed Tyranitar either. They might use a min speed uninvested Gastron. That's going to be pretty common. But even on Gastron, they would probably min the speed, because the same reason why you do it on Hippowdon, because it's like it's so slow that what are you really outspeeding outside of Trick Room? Almost nothing. So you might as well just make it min speed and then outspeed a lot of things in Trick Room. And then Gothitelle, it would outspeed, but nobody's going to use min speed on it unless it's a Trick Room team, or at least you're running Trick Room on it. And then Corviknight, no one's going to use min. So you would have to give it some speed for it to probably make sense if you're using adamant with it. Otherwise, you probably should just use min speed brave. So you'd probably want to outspeed the base 50 Pokemon, and maybe even min speed Armarouge. Maybe not. The min speed Armarouge is probably using Trick Room though, and you could probably use it against that. So you could either just barely outspeed these base 50 Pokemon, or you could give it more speed to outspeed like uninvested Tyranitar, Sylveon, Grimmsnarl. It might be worth giving it like enough speed to outspeed uninvested Tyranitar, because that's pretty common in Sylveon and Grimmsnarl. But either that or or Brave probably is what I would use. Or like I said, just make it outspeed the base 50s at least for sure. If you're using Adamant, make it outspeed these base 50 Pokemon, speed Pokemon. So going back to this, Citrus is a decent option for bulk, especially if you don't have Slack Off. If you have Slack Off and or Protect, you can probably stall long enough to make Leftovers possibly better. And the good thing about Leftovers is even though it doesn't restore any HP when you're not damaged yet, it's like it lasts forever. And if let's say you're at 90% HP, well, Leftovers is gonna heal you back to almost full. With Citrus, you have to wait until you're like at 50% for it to activate. And what if you needed it to be at, I don't know, 70% to survive their following attack? So in a lot of ways, Citrus can save you though, because it's like an instant 25% instead of over time. But like there are instances where, like I said, Leftovers leaves you with a higher like remaining HP, and it makes you less likely to be finished off, especially if you have Protect to stall or whatever. So it just depends on the move set and how you want to use it, the EV spreads, everything. The bulkier it is, the more likely, well, the bulkier it is with Slack Off and Protect, I would probably use Protect on this type of one. Well, even without Slack Off, maybe just having Protect, because you can Protect just to get another Leftovers heal. And Yawn Protect can be pretty good. You could just spam Yawn with Hippowdon. If you can't do anything else, you should be able to spam Yawn. And you can use it against Pokemon that are like grass type, I believe, and put them asleep. Let's double check that. I'm pretty sure, yeah, Yawn and Hypnosis and stuff, you should be able to use it to put like anything asleep. Except I don't think it, well, I don't know if it works against a ghost type because it's normal. It for sure doesn't work if they have Misty Terrain, Insomnia, Vital Spirit, etc. I don't even remember yawning a ghost type. Does yawn work against a ghost type? They are unable to be affected by yawn. Same way the dark types are unaffected by hypnosis. Okay, that's what I was kind of thinking. So just keep that in mind. You can't yawn a Flutter Mane, but at least Earthquake or Stone Edge would do a lot to it. And then what other sets do we have? Oh, if you don't want to have to Earthquake and possibly hit your ally, then you could use Stomping Tantrum. Because oftentimes for Earthquake, they will have two Pokemon either weak or neutral to it, but sometimes they will have a Pokemon that's immune or resistant to it, and or you have a Pokemon ally that doesn't necessarily want to be hit by an Earthquake, so you might want Stomping Tantrum if that's the case. It has the same power for that single target as Earthquake, and the good thing about Stomping Tantrum is it doubles if they fake you out the turn before. If they flinch you the turn before with like Rock Slide or Fake Out or something, next turn you have 150 power. So it'd be really good against Iron Hands trying to fake it out. So Stomping Tantrum. See, this Pokemon I think is really underrated. I really got to test it out, even though I think Tar is really good, because this has really bland like typing where it's not really 4 times weak to anything, and it is 2 times weak to some moves, but it not being 4 times weak to anything, and it being a ground Pokemon offensively is really good, and it's alright defensively too. And it'll have a lot of special defense if you use Terra Rock. Then, oh, I copied this one. Let me go to the fourth one before I go to the Assault Vest. I'll have to change the moves on it. Let me just delete these two for now. So, like I said, you can mix and match with the moves, but Helping Hand might be a decent move just looking at all its moves. I don't think I would use body press personally because you would have to use like curse or something with it, and it doesn't do enough immediate damage. And they could just hit you on the special side while you're doing that. It already has a lot of defense, so I would probably just use like support moves like yawn or helping hand or protect or slack off or whatever. And Lumberry is so that if they try to put you asleep or they try to use a Will-O-Wisp on you, you can be immune to that. Because I don't think it's worth using Terra Fire on Hippowdon, maybe, but if you instead of Terra Fire, it's probably not worth using a Terra just for Hippowdon for defensively when it doesn't really help offensively at all, especially if you're not using like Fire Fang. Like I would just use Lumberry on it. You can use it against like burns and sleep and stuff, and it would be pretty useful. And then the Salt Vest set, Earthquake, Stone Edge. I suppose you might have room for Rock Slide now if you want it as a spread move, and you can maybe flinch something if you somehow outspeed them in Trick Room or whatever. But just spread moves are good to have, or more accurate rock moves. And Stomping Tantrum would be good. I don't know if you really should use Rock Slide. You might actually want like Ice Fang or something, or Terra. You could even use Terra Blast with it if you feel comfortable Terra-ing a lot, but I don't know about that. I guess you could use Terra Blast. Rock Tomb would be a good move if you're using Adamant. It'd be pretty decent. Yeah, Rock Tomb. And maybe you could use that even actually over Stone Edge. Maybe that should be the standard so that it doesn't miss. And if you're using an Adamant one, I would use if you're using Adamant, let me change this. Either be 72 or like 82 or something. So I would probably just go with like 72-ish speed to outspeed the base 50s. And you could use more or less attack. What was I going to use? Ice Fang? Ice Fang would give it good coverage versus like Garchomp or Salamence or whatever. But unless they're 4 times weak to it, it's probably not going to be that useful. But you might have room for it on the Assault Vest set. Another move you could maybe use is Fissure to eventually one-shot these bulky Pokemon like Garganacl, even though you do super affect that with your ground moves. But Fissure, I suppose, versus like Dondozo, but you probably want to only get 1 or 2 hits off with it versus something like that. So yeah, actually, I don't think I would use Terra Blast Rock with this because Rock Tomb is high enough power, or Stone Edge is more powerful than Terra Blast, and you have to use a Terra for that. So actually, you would Terra a lot though, because you're trying to raise your special defense and change your typing. So actually, maybe it would be good. It just depends on how often you use it. Okay, I think these are pretty much all the Hippowdon sets that I'm going to cover. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next video.